Hello there. Welcome to our monthly Escape Your Humdrum Life and Move Into Your Dreams conversation series. I'm Don Downs, joined by Kit Cassingham. Each month we put on a conversation, typically a free-flowing conversation. For those who join us live, they can join in and add to the depth of the conversation. And we talk about various topics that are involved in helping you escape your humdrum life and achieve the life of your dreams. So this month's topic is community. And we'll be exploring what community is and why is it important. How can you develop community and topics like that. So before we get started, let's do a little introduction. Kit, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'd love to, Don. Thanks. I'm Kit Cassingham, a longevity coach with Live in Focused Energy. I love working with people who want to live with intention. I guide you to improve your mindset to help you get the most out of the years you have with vibrancy, joy, and that sense of relevance that we all want.
All right. Thank you, Kit. I'm Don Downs. I'm with RV Business Coach, and I help people in the prime of their lives create successful, fun, entrepreneurial business that are fully location independent so that they can enjoy the remote life. Now, for some, remote life might be traveling the country in an RV. For some, it might be traveling the country or the world and staying in Airbnbs or B&Bs or something like that. And for some, it just means not having to go back into the office once the pandemic cleared and you've proved for 2 years that you can work remotely successfully. Why would you feel like you need to go back and be surrounded in a cubicle and whatever again? So those are the kinds of people I help and help them replace their current income and start a new life, kind of move into their dreams, as we say. So today's topic is community. And I know a lot of us kind of have this sense of what is community, but it's kind of hard to put into words. And I'm going to put Kit on the spot because, Kit, I know you wrote a manifesto regarding longevity. And I think you did a really fine job of explaining community in that manifesto. So if you would you share what you wrote about community there?
I don't have that whole paragraph up. I'd be glad to pull it up. My summary of it is that community is a group of people who are loosely or tightly connected. They're supporting each other. They're caring for and about each other. And they'll connect with you at your office, your church, your neighborhood, any group that you're in. So community, I think, is important for the and this is long-term and short-term community. I even say the people I meet at the grocery store, my really short-term community.
I think that's a great way to describe it. When I think of community, I kind of think as a very loose definition. It's just a group of people who are living in the same place or having a particular characteristic in common. So people in a city, in a sense, are a community. People in a neighborhood are, in a sense, a community. It can expand to specific groups like maybe the RVing community or the scientific community, the teaching community. So we have communities like that. A little bit tighter definition, I think, is fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, or goals. So that ties it in a little bit more. We're working together to achieve something. And as Kit pointed out, it can be long-term or short-term. Example in the RVing community, there's a large-scale RVing community, which is people who RV a lot, and there's tons of Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups where they can get together and share with each other. And then there will be a really small overnight RV community of the people who all stop at the same Walmart for an overnight. So, as Kit said, it can be really long-term or short-term, but you get a little bit of a sense of who people are and, hopefully work together and share with each other. Some examples of communities I can think of, family is a community in one or both of those definitions. I mentioned earlier your neighborhood. If there's a group of people out picnicking together, you might call that a picnicking community. Can you think of any other examples, Kit?
Classes we take. We're in community.
That happens a lot. Yeah, definitely.
It does. And I apologize. I was distracted. I got a message and I wondered if it was one of our audience trying to get in who couldn't. So
It's a good reason to be distracted.
And my cat's distracting me. I have a community of a cat.
Yes.
Even belongings that we have. I remember when Saturns first came out decades ago, Saturn had a community. Saturn owners would drive across the country to meet and share their joy of the car. I hear of Tesla owners doing the same thing. People in yurts do that, at least virtually, on Facebook. When I walked the Camino, even though we were only friends for a day, a week, a month, we were a community there too.
Great examples. And, you reminded me as you talked about the Saturn community, using the RV example, there's the whole RVing community, which is everyone who likes to RV. And then I've seen a Thor community, which Thor is a manufacturer of RVs, so people who bought various Thors. And then I've seen Thor Ace communities of people who bought the specific Ace model of the Thor. So, you can start broad and narrow down as the community, I guess, it forms and moves. And,
sure.
Now,
does it go so far as to have age brackets? RVers who are 50 plus, let's meet here.
There are communities like that, yes, which is really kind of funny in a way, because what I've seen people complain about is, people in their 40s without kids would like to hang with those people so they don't have kids, and then people like me who are well over 50 but still have kids in the house don't feel as welcome in a 55 plus group. So sometimes you have a community that's misnamed.
Right. Well, so that brings me back to, I don't know if you remember hearing me talk about what started off as my retirement community idea and has evolved into a regenerative community where I want people of all age brackets, income brackets, all walks of life to live together in a small community where our homes create a park in the middle, where there's a playground at one end and a garden at the other, a path around the middle. But the idea is that we have each other's backs, that me as the little old lady of 95 or 105, whatever I'll be then, I can take care of the single parents' kids after school. I could read to them, or I could be a tutor to them. So single parents, even parents where both of them are working, the kids can be left alone, and sometimes babysitters don't work out. And on the other hand, the teenage kids, other people can help me hang the TV on the wall or move a piece of furniture. I can read to them, they can read to me. We can all walk together, garden together. So to me, that's a wonderful sounding community. Excuse me while I get excited.
No, it's great. That is a great sounding community. And let's dive in and explore that a little bit, because you kind of touched on it. And so I think we can go a little bit deeper. Why do we need community? What's the advantage of having community? And, you gave some examples there. People can take care of each other. I think first thing that pops to my mind, the two phrases, it takes a village and no man's an island, both come into play in a community. What other benefits do you see from being in community?
Presuming it's a supportive community, not a controlling community, which some communities can be. We are supported mentally and emotionally, spiritually, so that I'm going to back up a little bit and say I watched how my mother-in-law really started declining during COVID because of the way she was locked into her apartment. And that distressed me. And that just really fanned my flames, because she wasn't getting the community that she moved there for. Mm-hmm. She sort of had people to do things for her, but she wasn't getting to interact with people. She was eating alone. And I don't know if it was her understanding or just a game they were playing, but if she'd gone out and walked in the forest surrounding her community, she would have been quarantined for 2 weeks. And I said, and what's the difference between what they're doing to you now and quarantine? So I don't know if she misunderstood or if they just thought they had a power over her, which they did. She wouldn't go out.
Wow. And you bring up a good point with that, that COVID did show us disadvantages of losing community. I mean, when the thing first started, and the wife was sent home from work and my sons were sent home from school, I was in hog heaven. I'm an introvert. I'm working at home. My whole family's here. I can't go out. It was great, right? And then over time, I started realizing how much I missed just being around people, whether they were, close contact or just, when things started to loosen up and you went to the store, it was like, oh, people. Didn't know any of them, but, and when I got to church and it was like, oh man, before COVID, we always hugged each other. And now I guess we'll kind of elbow bump or something, but, didn't realize how much I missed that until it was taken away. And then we got it back.
Yeah.
And, one thing I did hear from the medical community through COVID was mental health diagnoses in 2020 and 2021 went up 30%. And they said, that's just the people who threw in the towel and asked for help. So we know it was much, much higher than that.
Yeah.
Which really shows what we lost in not being able to have some degree of contact with people.
And part of that contact involves movement. And COVID also reduced movement for many people. And I think health reflected that. I think people got heavier. I think illnesses, infections could take hold and blossom more. There are a lot of ill effects. Go ahead.
Everyone talked about the quarantine 15, right? Put on 15 pounds during.
Oh,
quarantine.
yeah.
I guess that's an average.
And right. And like you, I work here in my yurt alone. I can be here for days on end, be happy camper. Now I'm not an introvert, but I love my yurt and I love being in the middle of nowhere. Now it seems like in the middle of nowhere. But the minute they said, you stay home, my brain goes, no, I have places to go, people to see, things to do. It took a few days for me to settle it down to, no, we're just going to continue as is.
Okay.
And it's okay. It worked.
We would go outside and walk in the neighborhood, which was nice because we did get outdoors, we did get some movement, we did get some fresh air, but it was this weird feeling that if you met someone, one person or the other would step off of the sidewalk into the street so we could pass, at least 6 feet apart. And it was kind of amusing at the beginning. And, later on, I was thinking, I'm looking forward to the day when we don't have to move off the sidewalk and we can just say, hey, how you doing as we pass, So we did lose.
So are those days back for you?
They are coming back. It's still not, I don't think everybody still stays on the sidewalk, but more and more people are. And
so another thing that when I was talking about working alone, I do miss being in an office once in a while because there's a certain synergy you get when you're with people that you can talk through the walls, over the walls, meet at the water cooler, stop for coffee together. You need to brainstorm. You go ask somebody who's done what you're wanting to do, or you two minds will work better than one, even if neither one of you knows the project. So
that's true, and that's the biggest complaint I've heard from companies where people are remote is if they were used to being together before, they lost a lot of that shout over the cubicle, the hallway conversation, the walk by and overhear a conversation and realize, hey, that's going to affect me. Let me stop and hear this. So if people are going to be fully remote, we have to consciously figure out how are we going to open those lines of communications and make sure that we still have those kinds of conversations, even though we may be strategically spread apart. But you mentioned the benefit of synergy. The flip side of that is sometimes when we have a lot of people together, we get groupthink. And I define those two as synergy being the outcome is greater than the sum of the parts. So what you came up with is better than what any individual brought into it individually. And groupthink is the opposite. It's where the outcome is less than any individual part. Because I've seen groups get together and come up with a solution that individually everybody knew was a horrible answer, but as a group, they thought it was the best answer they came up with, So community works both ways, I guess. The synergy is awesome. The groupthink, not so much. So something to be aware of as we're in community is how is this benefiting me and where are we at and how do I stay conscious of what we're getting and what we're not?
Another community is masterminds. You and I have been in a couple of masterminds together. One still exists, one doesn't. And well, that's how we met, actually. And that was a fun community because we had a common goal of each of us wanting to create our own masterminds, which is what that mastermind was about. There was no competition with this, though, because yours was on RV, and at the time mine was on bed and breakfasts. And I forget what Mark's was on, but it was community related,
gaming,
though.
I think. Oh, no, he did have a community. You're right. I was thinking it was gaming, and I think actually he had two. I think he had one for
you're right,
games and one for a community effort that he was working on. So
and
that's a key thing. Right, that's a key thing in a mastermind community, and probably a lot of other communities, is not to be in competition with each other, because you want to be supportive of each other. And it doesn't necessarily mean you can't be doing the same thing, because I think a really mature approach is to realize we're not in a zero-sum game in the world. So just because your business grows doesn't mean mine has to shrink. We can both grow our businesses, both serve our ideal clients, even though we're doing the same thing. As Victor Solid describes it, there's no such thing as competition. There's only someone else doing the exact same thing you do with a different target market, or a different ideal client. We do have that, but that, part of what makes the mastermind work is that common goal. We're all there to help each other, to build each other up, to help each other succeed. And so that's a great common goal, but we have a common goal that moves us all forward.
Yeah. So to go back to the workplace synergy, I'm sure you've heard the story of how Randy started This Is True. He had a hobby where he would cut an article out of the newspaper and in red ink write some little smart aleck comments, something that the reason it had caught his attention, some smart aleck comment, joke, something thought-provoking. And then he'd pin it on the bulletin board outside his cubicle, and somebody would notice and say, "Article," and he could hear all the people coming down the hall and all the chuckling, or the can you believe, they're all the reactions. And one night he realized that he knew enough people with email that he could make this distribution by email, because there aren't all that many people in his office that could see it. But he started with 50 people on his email list and was amazed how many of them subscribed. And he, to this day, still has some of them. Some of them have died. But yeah, so
the only reason
that was a synergy
from This Is True.
Yes, a few people have. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And they unsubscribe for the.
I was saying the only reason anyone unsubscribes is because they died.
Oh yes, and yeah, but he's developed the word obliviate. And those are people who are oblivious and an idiot all in one.
Right.
Readers he's had for. Yeah. People who get offended by something he says, and they've been reading him for decades, and they still will get offended. It's like, right. I guess you weren't the reader I thought you were. It's funny anyway. Right. But yes, dying's.
Occasionally he'll publish something, someone unsubscribed because he said a cuss word or something. And it's like, you've been subscribing for 10 years. It's not the first one I've used. But that story is awesome because he was building community within his work community by providing that outlet for humor that, probably broke a lot of tension and got people together because they could share this commonality of Randy's wit.
Yeah. Yes. And he's honed that from just being being funny to thought-provoking, because he really wants people to think more, think for themselves. So, but you're right. That's a good way of tying it back to our session
community. Here. Right. So we've talked a lot of the advantages of community. Is community always good? Can you think of times when community works against you?
Yes. You get the groupthink going, that's against you. But I have several friends who've been in religious affiliations. And when they cross some known or unknown boundary, they are shoved out of the community. I've heard stories of even parents turning their backs on their children because the church said that's a bad person. So to me, that's a disadvantage of a community. If it's and I call that a controlling community.
Yeah, I agree that any type of control, and especially that ostracizes members and ostracizes family because they're not members is in my mind pretty scary. Another reason community sometimes fails is people are in each other's business too much. We talked about the advantage of it is people can take up the slack. If it's my turn to go to the grocery store and I'm sick, maybe you'll go to the store instead or something like that. But, it can get to where it's too much and you're telling me everything I need to do for the community or to make myself better, whatever, rather than letting it be generative within the community.
And rather than letting you blossom into your greater self, which will be to the benefit of the community, which may be just what you said, but community needs to honor the individual and respect the collective.
That's very well put. I like that. And I think that's, it also related to, we talked about earlier, you don't have to be in competition, shouldn't be in competition with other people in the community, but the whole community being supportive of each other, which kind of brings up another possible con that it sometimes happens is sometimes people start using the community as a crutch. So rather than carry their own weight, they know someone in the community is going to pick up the slack. And so they can, cut back and not contribute as much to the community. And, that's a con, especially for the person who does that, because they're getting less out of the community. But then it also negatively impacts the whole community because they're, have this one member that's not really contributing.
Well, in fact, you just touched on something that's real important, that even the classes we take, the meetings we go to online or anywhere, the person who repeatedly doesn't show up not only is depriving themselves of the group efforts and energy, but they're depriving us of their input, which is a different twist than what you were just talking about, but I think related just the same. If you're going to be in community, you need to be engaged. Engage.
Right. Yes. So let's explore that a little more. If you're going to be in community, what is your role being in community?
Well, being an active participant is part of being in community.
Definitely.
Minding your boundaries, which is true in life. I mean, I guess like condo and townhome associations, those are communities.
Talk about controlling.
And even though, well, they can be, but not all of them are. But I can't play my stereo as loud as I want any time of night or day just because I'm in my house. So that is my response. That's boundary I need to pay attention to. Right.
So yeah, respecting boundaries is one. I think, the community presumably came together over some commonality. So sharing that commonality is a benefit to the community. The homeowners association, maybe not as much because the commonality is that we all bought in the same neighborhood. But maybe there's other commonalities within that we share. A lot of homeowners associations have subgroups of, a gardening club or a progressive dinner club or something like that. So those people have, a community where it would be important to share that. If I'm going to be in the gardening community, I probably ought to show up and help with the gardening, right?
Yeah. With ideas and elbow grease and your trowel or seeds or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, taking actions to support the community rather than dragging it down. So, if there's infighting in the community, that drags it down. So playing off your commonality and supporting each other is pretty important in a community rather than intentionally bringing strife into the community.
Well, the flip side of that is, in addition to don't bring strife, be a source and a path for peace. If you see two neighbors with tension between them, maybe you can go help smooth the way, smooth things for them, help them communicate and get past that roadblock. But again, that'll depend on the community as to whether that's welcome or not.
Right. But hopefully it is, because I think one of the things that makes strong communities stronger is that ability to keep people on a more peaceful path. If, like you said, tensions start to flare, to work it out and not let it grow to the point that it's dividing the community. Yeah. Depending on the community, one of your roles might be to help it grow. Recruit new members that share this sense of community. But not only increasing numbers, but also just increasing the fellowship and the strength of the bonds that are between all of the members. Which is kind of like taking that peaceful path thing, I guess. But intentionally trying to
kind of, but
the fellowship of the group.
Yeah. You said something that sparked an idea. When it comes back, I'll pipe up.
All right.
And in fact, maybe part of it was that, and we've talked about how we help each other grow our businesses. So that concept and what you just said come to have a common point of we're helping each other grow. I mean, if you see that I'm struggling time and again with a certain concept, you can help me through that concept, be it in relationships or technology or whatever. I was talking with a friend yesterday through IM, and she and her husband have had some health issues. And I asked if she was getting nutritional counseling from her doctor. She said, "No, I'm a lazy cook, and my husband doesn't cook at all." And I said, "Well, what if I could teach you some simple recipes that would let you stay lazy, but would be healthy too?" And by the time she finished her list of things it had to include and couldn't include, I said, "Okay, well, never mind.
Enjoy eating out."
It has to have sugar. It has to have salt.
Oh my goodness.
No seafood. It's like, how many ways can you cook chicken? She didn't go there, but
okay. I hear that one a lot.
But there's a community that would have been fun to have participated in. It would have been small, short term, but I would have been able to help her maintain her health and maybe help her husband regain his health.
Right.
So,
and one thing that sparked in me as you told that is a responsibility to bring a good energy to the group. Energy not only in terms of not necessarily meaning being bubbly and effervescent, but also meaning a more positive energy, not negativity, not yes but ism, but bring a sense of positive energy and positive interaction to the group.
Yeah, that is important. And it's funny how we sometimes can slip negative energy in under the guise of it being positive. I was on a mastermind call yesterday, and one of the members looked really exhausted. I mean, his eyes were sunken in his head in dark circles. And I asked about him, and he said, "Well, I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this." And I said, "Oh, no wonder you look tired." And one of the other people in the group said, "No judgment here, though." I thought, where did that come from? Was I coming across as judgmental? Were you feeling judgmental?
Sounds like it was an attempt to be empathetic that was interpreted as judging.
Well, so I didn't know what to make of it, and that may be irrelevant. Maybe I should cut that from this conversation, but erase.
Maybe not. All right. Well, we talked about communities. We've talked about pros and cons of community and the role in the community. I think most of the time we'll probably agree that a well-formed community will have more pros and cons, which brings us to the question of, if you want to develop a community, how can you go about doing that? And I'll start by throwing out, sometimes it just forms spontaneously. We talked about within an RV park or within the parking lot at Walmart. It's, a group of random people put together in a specific place for a short period of time. And yet there often is this sense of community. There's a feeling within the RV family, particularly before COVID, of RVers were always willing to help each other out. Now, since COVID, there's a lot of new people and they haven't learned all of the ins and outs of the community yet. So some people feel like, there's these people that don't fit, but nonetheless, there's still this instantaneous, spontaneous gathering at an RV park where there's, for good or for bad, you've got this community of people together, and usually some subset of that people will form temporary bonds and keep up with each other, help each other out at the park. Or I remember camping one time, and I don't remember why I needed to caulk my roof. I guess we found a leak or something. And a guy about 2 sites down comes down with a tube of roofing caulk and goes, "Here, let me help you fix that." And he was a little older than me, so I wouldn't let him up on the roof, but I did borrow his caulk and caulked it. And then a day or two later, his air conditioning quit. And, like 6 of us from around the area were helping him fix the air conditioner as best we could on a weekend, So there's that kind of positive spontaneity that sometimes can develop.
Well, and those friendships aren't always short term. My friends who slow travel across Europe and Africa and the Americas, they've made some lifelong friends that they still are in touch with 10, 15, 20 years later. And that just...
A lot of the full-timers will develop friends with other full-timers, even though they only see each other, maybe once a year if they're lucky, because they're all traveling and going different directions, but periodically that, maybe sometimes accidentally and sometimes because they say, "Hey, we need to meet up again," and they figure out someplace. But yeah, you can build long-term relationships out of a group that forms spontaneously for a short-term event. That happens.
Right. Well, when you first asked the question of how do you start a community, my quick answer was you plant your flag in the ground, take your stance and say, "I'm here for whatever." And that can take the form of parking your RV in a specific place. It could be buying the land and platting it out for my regenerative community or a co-housing community. It could be putting a promotion up somewhere, newspaper, coffee store, wherever, and say, "Oh, in fact, we'll go with the coffee idea." That I used to belong to a group that we called ourselves the Coffee Church. We met at the coffee shop every Sunday morning and resolved the problems of the world. And somebody
for a while
planted
had a coffee shop. Oh, go ahead.
Well, somebody just had the idea, and they would invite one friend, and after a while, we just took up the whole outside patio or inside living room. Your church had a coffee shop?
We didn't have a coffee shop, but we had a coffee shop Sunday school. There was a group of people who would meet at a local coffee shop during the Sunday school hour and share over coffee, and then leave there and drive in time to make it to the church service when it started. So that popped in my mind as you said that. Another little sub community there, I guess.
Another way of having coffee church. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
You talked about the things you talked about there. I think you brought up 2 good points. One is to show up. One is to intentionally connect, to show up and say, "I'm looking to connect with these types of people and build this community." And then related to that is provide an environment conducive to that community. So if you're going to have coffee church, you need a place where you have coffee. It might be a coffee shop. Maybe it's in somebody's home with a big coffee maker. It's probably not outside in a picnic area. Maybe everybody brings a thermos. I don't know. But so, providing the proper environment can really help with the community.
The first book club I belonged to met at the library. They had a meeting room, and that's where we'd meet 1 week a month, one evening. And we weren't looking at their books per se, but it's kind of nice to be surrounded by library books when you're talking about a book.
Yes.
So having
that's a
an
great
appropriate
idea.
place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We talked about
now you can't do
brings up when you have the environment of an RV park.
Well, and can't you create an RV park feeling anytime there are 2 or more RVs? My friends who are slow traveling just camped in a winery or a winery area at the vineyard. They could park anywhere they wanted there. So I don't know that anybody else joined them, but what a cool community that would have been.
Neat. Those are neat. Yeah. A lot of times they only have room for 1 or 2 RVs, but if it's 2, you'll probably have a little teeny tiny community there with the other person as you share the fun of camping at a winery or a vineyard. That's different.
Yeah. Very different. Yeah. Or on the beach somewhere.
Mhm.
As I drove into town yesterday and saw the vehicles parked at Walmart, I go, hey, there's a Walmart community.
In a way. You have any thoughts about a Walmart community?
If I really need a place to stay, I suspect I'd feel safer there than parked off on some side road.
Mhm.
Because there are lights there. And I mean, I used to travel alone a lot, and I stayed conscious of where I parked, but my mother was not always impressed with my decisions. Yeah, I would think that I was real in plain sight. Actually, I can't remember now, but it doesn't matter. There's time for everything.
Yes.
But a Walmart parking lot RV community would be valuable if you have no other options. Your vehicle's broken down, you need to stay in town, and you can't even drive out to the RV park.
Right.
Walmart's
And a
across,
lot of people do
they
it,
have
car. RVers staying there is strictly an overnight. I need to get off the road, get some rest, and I'm continuing tomorrow. The ethical guidelines say you don't put out your slides, you don't get out the grill, you don't build a campfire. It's pull in, spend the night, and get going the next morning. And go in and buy some stuff. There is that
problem since COVID.
If there's, I've seen, where they kind of form a little area of the RVers, and even though they don't have their slides out and campfires going, they can still get out and talk with each other. So you could have that little bit of community.
Yeah. Well, since COVID, our Walmart closes at 8. So if you pull in at 9 and leave at 8, you're going to miss them. So
yeah.
And I gather Walmart most of them are not going to resume their 24-hour hours.
Interesting. At least not until they find more labor.
Well, and ways for security. I guess probably labor is the issue because it's security and it is stocking.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stock when there are a lot of people in the store? Some stores do it anyway, and others try and do it during the slow time.
I've seen other stores say, we have to have people here to stock, so we might as well have customers here and, offset the cost of paying people to be here, right? You need one cashier extra, or maybe even your stock people can see when someone's at the cash register and go check them out. So it just depends on, in a sense, the community of the organization as to how they can manage will it work in that particular company to have people restocking while customers are there? Or would it be better to, restock overnight and you can block all the aisles and come down with forklifts and whatever. So that interesting thought of even businesses start being, in a sense, a bit of community.
Well, you said something that reminded me. One of my huge attractions to my the town I live near, is that there's a community within a community. Whenever someone has a problem and needs help, people come rushing in with food or lawyers or hands to paint or repair whatever. They'll have fundraisers to do things, and I've seen it time and again through the years, and that is a lovely aspect of community. That's a real community, as opposed to the community that's not connected. Right. And they just walk by the people in need and hardly acknowledge them.
Yep. Good point. So we've talked about developing community. It can form spontaneously, but if you want to intentionally grow one, it helps to provide the right environment to intentionally connect and to show up with that intentional connection. Let's talk a little bit about maybe some guidelines for the community. I know, Kit, you have a nice story about rules versus guidelines that you could share with us from your B&B examples.
When I was teaching aspiring innkeepers how to open and operate their bed and breakfast, one of the sessions was on the rules of the inn, and people objected. They said, we don't want rules. We want people to feel at home. And my response is, everybody needs rules. If you want to call them guidelines, fine. But people need to know the rules so that they can be comfortable. They need to know where they're welcome, where they can go and where they can't go. Can they show up to breakfast naked, or would you rather they have clothes on? Some innkeepers don't even like their guests showing up in a bathrobe. I was tickled when they felt that comfortable to come down dressed like that, but that's just me. So my rules are come in a bathrobe if you want, but
don't come
you
after 10
have
o'clock.
operating, but be there. We serve breakfast from 7 to 10. But you have operating hours. You have rules of what form of cash you take. And I used to joke, I take cash, but I have to have 3 forms of picture ID. And the first few times I said that, people go, I only have 2. Joking. Which doors are, if the door is closed, presume you can't go in there. Here are all the places we serve breakfast. Help yourself. See the fruit on the table? It's yours. The sherry in the corner? Have a glass. So that is
the
my
stuff in the wine cellar,
experience.
stay away from.
Exactly, but that's locked up, and
yeah.
So it's behind a closed.
That's a closed door. Right.
Yeah,
so I think that's a great point.
But that's.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's just a confined example of the value of rules or boundaries, if that's how you want to define it. Help people feel comfortable and behave like the citizens of the community they're going to be in for that period of time.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. And, as you said, if you call it the rules, here's the rules for joining this group, it kind of gets people's hackles up a little bit. So maybe guidelines.
Excuse me one second.
Sure.
I had a friend send me the rules of an inn where she stayed out on the Cape in Massachusetts or somewhere. And it was 3 pages of it wasn't here are all the things you can do and here are suggestions. It was don't do this, don't do that. And it's like, whoa, those are rules. So I interrupted. Yeah. You could go ahead.
No, how you phrase it can make a big difference. That is a great point.
And 3 pages of them's a little much.
Yeah. I was trying to remember, my mom has a sign up in the house about grandma's rules. It was 3 rules, and the only one I remember is give them sugar, but different rules for different places. But as you pointed out, even communities need rules. Our mastermind group, it's there to form or to help each other grow their business. So one of the rules is you don't take anything from this group and share it outside of the group, because you might be sharing confidential information or something
without permission,
not intended. Yeah. Without permission. Right. You can get permission, but most business oriented groups will have that rule that is what happens in here stays in here. We can't share it. If you want to take it and teach a course from it, you better get permission of the people who shared it with you, and probably not use them as a specific example. So those kinds of guidelines can really help. Guidelines that say, no soliciting business is a frequent one in Facebook groups. We want you to develop community here, not join here and everybody be spamming us every day with your latest thing you're trying to sell. So the guidelines, they're important, and some of them will probably develop over time, I would guess, but it's probably good to very early on have some initial guidelines of, what kinds of things do you expect the group to do and not to do for each other.
Yeah. Well, and I forgot to mention that one way of forming a community is to have an idea that you think needs satisfying for others. A book club's an example. People need to talk about books. Our Internet Mastermind group is we need to grow our businesses. You and I have a little community right here, and we chose community to talk about. And if I decide to start talking about pink elephants instead, it would throw you off base, and anybody coming to watches or participate here would be thinking, what? Where did that come from? So there has to be a cohesiveness in all intention of participation. Maybe.
I agree. No, I agree. Any additional thoughts about community?
Intentionality, I think, is maybe the underlying concept. The intention of having a group of people to interact with, and intentionality of participating and interacting and growing. So intentionality, I'll say, is that, but it's more than that, because it started off with, in my mind, it takes community to stay healthy, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. So
yeah, something that popped in my mind as you were saying that was awareness. It comes into play so many places. Being aware of an area where there needs to be a community, like your example of the book club, being aware how the community is forming, being aware how the community is interacting with each other, being aware of what you're getting out of the community. All of those things can help the community grow in a more positive manner.
yeah.
And with that awareness then comes the intentionality of, we want it to grow this way and it's not, so we need to make these changes, or it's going great, so we need to do more of that, or whatever. All right. Well, I think I'm pretty much talked out on community. Can you think of any additional thing?
Oh, I will after we hang up.
We always
No,
will.
I think we've covered it pretty well.
I think so. But that brings up a good point. If someone has additional things after this is over, if you watch the recording and you have questions, feel free to get in touch with us. We'd love to hear it. So, Kit, you want to tell how to get in touch with you and any additional things you want to offer or tell to the viewers?
Yeah. I'll start with an offering that I have, which is designed to help you be engaged in life, in all aspects of your life better. And it's a course called Energize Me that I have developed, and I just haven't figured out the schedule for. I've got the web page started, but it's not quite ready for prime time yet. But if you can go to liveinfocusedenergy.com and go to the courses section and see what I've have available, that will be good. But I'll be sharing tips I have on how to build and maintain your energy so that you can live, again, a happier, healthier, more vibrant life. I'm Kit Cassingham with Live in Focused Energy. I am a longevity coach, and my intention is to help people make the most of the years they have, to be vibrant, productive, joyous, and relevant. Relevance is so important. So that's in a nutshell what I do and who I am.
All right. Thank you, Kit. I would like to offer opportunity to get together for a virtual coffee. I do it virtually because you could be anywhere in the country. And I just like getting to know people and, finding out, do we share some things that would make for a community? How can we help each other or whatever? So you can sign up to have a virtual coffee with me at rvbusinesscoach.com/virtual-coffee-with-Don. It's virtual coffee with Don with a dash between each word. So hop over there and sign up for a virtual coffee. Again, I'm Don Downs, and I help people live the remote life, whether that means traveling the country or just working from home. I can help you get out of the have to be in the building corporate rat race. So be happy to talk to you about that too. If you're interested in that, that's actually a different conversation than a virtual coffee. So just email me at don@rvbusinesscoach.com and we'll set up a time to discuss that in detail.
And I want to add to your invitation, Don, that if people have conversation they want to have or enjoy, they can leave comments with the video wherever it's posted. It'll be posted on YouTube and on my website. I don't know if you posted on your website or not, but wherever it's posted, people can leave comments and we'll engage because we're in community.
That's right. That's what community is all about. All right. Yeah. So I think that's it for today. Kit, do you remember next month's topic?
It is. I do. It is feng shui. I forget exactly. Let's see if I've got it here. Yeah. Practical feng shui. So we won't have the woo-woo aspect of it. We'll have the practical aspects of it.
Right. That should be, I think it'll be fun.
It is going to be fun.
I look forward to it. I am by no means a feng shui expert, but I'm curious about it. And, you know, a little bit put off by the total woo-woo stuff of some of it, but I know there is a practical side that comes to play as well. So we will be talking about that next month. Until then.
It'll be great fun. Thanks, Don.
Right.
It's been a great conversation.
All right. Thank you, Kit. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.